our session today is Amplifying Literacy with Book Creator and EL Education. So many of you, I read a press release that you have all been working very closely with EL Education on their new skills blocks, which I'm really excited. I have not had a part of that yet. So I'm excited to do that learning. So today's learning is going to be a little bit more curricular focused. Before we get started, I want us all to have the same understanding of when I'm talking about today with your EL curriculum, what we're really talking about. And so really curriculum is a standards-based sequence of planned experiences where students practice and achieve proficiency in content and applied learning skills. So that comes straight from the Rhode Island Department of Education. There's lots of different, what is a curriculum, but really those four things, goals, methods, materials, and assessments, are what every curriculum has to have and what your curriculums have as well. And so today we're going to really dial down as to what those four things are and how we can use Book Creator to enhance that even more. So when I talk about goals, what I'm talking about is, what you're using for lesson planning, goal setting, mastery statements. When I'm talking about methods, what we're talking about is like the things that you're doing in EL education already. So your daily tasks, your vocabulary notebooks, your reading journals, writing journals, skills blocks, etc. All of the kind of like the what of what you're doing. The materials are really what you're using to do the what. So that might be your digital tools versus your hard copy tools. Are your tools accessible and diverse, and are they engaging for students? And last but not least, your assessments. So obviously with EL education, your assessments are built in. But again, when we're talking about that, are those assessments digital or hard copy? Are they accessible or diverse, and are they engaging? So you'll see a lot of these things overlap. When we talk about the foundations of literacy, I want to make sure that we realize how important those are and how even more enriching and engaging by using a platform such as Book Creator. So we know that our 5 pillars of literacy are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. However, you could have the most amazing lesson in the most amazing format, but if they're not motivated, it doesn't matter. If students do not have access to the material for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. And so one of the things that we find most when we speak with students and teachers that use Book Creator regularly is how motivated their students are to do the work, as well as to show not only that, but in addition, the access. So we have a lot of built-in accessibility tools right in our platform for those of you who are unfamiliar with Book Creator. That way, all students, whether you are an ELL student or whether you're a special education student, everybody has access to what they need. So some basic features, as I mentioned, are basic features of Book Creator that is built into really everyone that has a premium license and actually even a free license are these kind of features here. So you'll notice we have the ability to add text, and not only with adding text, you can translate your text. So you can translate it in over 130 languages. So for your parents or students that are non-English speaking, this is a really great tool for them. The ability to add real images into their work and into your content. And so the ability to use Pixabay, free, safe, so that way you don't have any worries. We also use Google Safe Images, but that's an option that can be turned on or off. So all of these can be turned on or off. Camera, the ability to take pictures or video. So having students practice their presentation, having them read aloud, hearing their voice, all of these things that we do to help support fluency. The ability to add that audio piece. So again, their voice. So not just having their picture or video, but just a voice. You can give instructions. The students can give instructions. You can have more than one student interacting with each other. We have these pre-built templates or graphic organizers that I will show you that are really great, that are free for all of you with premium licenses. We also do have some free versions as well that can be added into any book. The ability to embed, and so making sure that we can embed anything from other content areas. So we know we pull resources from many different places as teachers. So being able to take a YouTube video or something from another platform and embed it right into your book. We have a pen tool for highlighting, drawing, writing. We have some fun emojis in there for students that want to be a little bit more creative. And then the ability to embed PDFs into a book. And what's really great about this is that most of our curriculums have a lot of PDFs that are attached to them. And so you can actually upload or embed the PDF right into your document, and then you can use the accessibility features over it. So you can write over the top of it, you can highlight, you can have the students use their voice. So again, having a lot of different ways to show mastery of the standards. For our goals today, the standards and benchmarks, learning outcomes, scope and sequence, breadth and depth. I'm just going to give some examples of how other districts and schools have used Book Creator to support these things. So when we're talking about the goals of the lesson, obviously with EL education, it's scripted for you. It tells you these are the standards, these are the learning targets, this is what we're doing. What we've had some schools do for their teachers, especially in an age right now, I don't know for you all, but I know up by me in Michigan, we have a teacher shortage at a lot of our schools. And so we have long-term substitutes, teachers on emergency licensing. And so we want to make sure that the students, regardless of what class they're in, are getting the best possible learning outcomes. And so what they've done is they've taken their like Google Docs or other places that they've had their lesson planning, and they've actually put it into a book in Book Creator. And so you'll notice here, this was all about exploration. Their lesson 8 is the yellow box, the meaning making lesson. And then what they've done is you can click into it. And then when you click into it, you'll get to the individual lesson 8. Well, you'll see the exact lesson, what they're doing with the embedded resources. So they want the students to do their vocabulary journal. It's clicked right in there. The teacher then can click it, opens it up, and assign it and share it with students. And so again, making things that they're already using much easier and more accessible. So if you're having to do these things, how can we use the resources that we're doing to make them even better? This is one of our new graphic organizers. As I mentioned, we have quite a few graphic organizers built into Book Creator, and I will show you that in a little bit. So having students take ownership of their learning. So if this lesson for this week or this module is all about, okay, in third grade, module 1, we are focusing on using academic texts to learn. And so I can read this text, whatever it is. And are they tracking it? We know they need to do these things more than one time in order to show mastery. And so having students take ownership of those I can statements of their learning, this is just one way to do it. Also goal setting. So what do they want to learn throughout the course of this module? What are they trying to do? Having a fun way, when I talk about that engaging, you're still doing the learning. It's no different than the learning targets that you already have up on your anchor charts in your classroom, but this way they get their own personal one in a book. This helps them keep track and again, take that ownership of their learning to make it that much more engaging. And last but not least, we find that the power of student voice and student video is really, really powerful and impactful for your classroom learning. And so even thinking about if students are willing to share their voice or a video about what their goals are for that unit or for this module, we find that that really becomes much more personal for the student. And then they really like to share that out and rewatch it as they go through the learning journey. So that's kind of the overview of the goals. We're going to jump right into the methods. This is really when we talk about the things that we're doing in Book Creator to support EL education. This is really the meat and potatoes of it all. And so this is where we talk about the instructional decisions that we are making. So we know that it's scripted, but we know that we have to make those decisions every single day, every single moment for the students that might not be meeting the standards. What about our special education students? What about our ELL students? How are we meeting the needs of all of our classroom learners? This comes into the routines and procedures, differentiated instruction, and the learning experience in itself. So what are we doing to make sure that this learning experience is the best it can possibly be? Just thinking about some of the things that you have to do every day in EL education. So we have to do our daily tasks. Those are usually scripted right in. So as the students come in, you're reviewing some of the things that you've learned from the day before. They might ask you some questions or some writing prompts. It really kind of depends on the grade level and the unit or module that you're in. But really what EL education has named is the 3 key attributes for high quality work: complexity, craftsmanship, and authenticity. And when you think about those 3 things and how students could potentially do a lot of that work in a ongoing living digital document that can be shared out with other students, other teachers, and even their families, that authenticity and craftsmanship really, really are stronghold there. And so we've worked really closely at Book Creator with EL education to create those higher level learning experiences for students. And so some of the things I'm going to show you today are just really easy things that you can easily embed to start getting students used to the platform if you are not familiar with Book Creator, as well as getting them this kind of ongoing learning journey. So when we talk about portfolios or we talk about things, creating some of these resources in a digital book offers that portfolio naturally and intrinsically. So one thing that a lot of the units have to do, this is grade 6, is an entrance ticket. So when they come into the classroom, here's what you need to do to get ready for your lesson today. Usually it's just if you just use like the free version, or even it might just be like a free online, or they might say, okay, take out your word processing like a Google Doc and write it in and we'll go over it. Well, that's great. But unfortunately, some of those things don't always have the accessibility features. So being able to just record your voice and share your thoughts, being able to use speech to text to share your thoughts. So I'm going to give you just a quick example here. Which habits of character does William demonstrate in this excerpt? If I wanted to go to the text box, I would just go to the plus button text. Now here you will notice the microphone. The microphone, again, can be translated into 134 different languages, but I'm just going to use English. I think that the habits of character that William demonstrates in this excerpt are that of strength and bravery. As you can see, it was easily able to take my speech, put it into text, I can put it there. If my teacher said, I don't really, I can listen to it, you can also record voice. The microphone translates from one language into English. So yes, you can do that as well. Yes, so the microphone, the translations can go back and forth. I'm going to start recording. I think that the habits of character that William demonstrates in this excerpt are that of strength and bravery. So when I stop recording, I can use my recording. And this coloring can be changed by going into your inspector. You can change it to any color you want. But when you go into translate here, what it'll do is first will generate a text transcript of the audio. And then once you review that, then you change it into the language. So here, the language used in the audio is English. This is where you would scroll down and then you can generate that transcript. Once the transcript is generated in whatever the home language is and you review it, then you can choose the language that you want it to be translated in. So now I will change it to Spanish. You can do...
Esta es una grabación de muestra. Esta es una grabación. Esta es una grabación. Esta es una grabación de muestra con...
Get 4 voices to choose from, and then it translates. You'll notice down here that the regular English is a regular, like just lines, and the translated shows some other characters. My recommendation is whenever you translate something, use the inspector, change the coloring so that they know, okay, all the English are always going to be one color, yellow. All of the translated text is always, or voice will always be this color. It just helps for your students to visually recognize which one's translated and which one isn't. So that's my little hack for you. But yes, a very easy way to translate here in Book Creator. Another example is you have to do a lot of, especially at the early grades, a lot of worksheets, working through phonics skills, working through phonemic awareness and fluency. And so showing one example here, like syllable slice. So this is just straight copied from the PDF that students would normally have. They're working on taking a word like sofa, breaking it into its 2 syllables. So this is one way to do it. Again, I mentioned you can use the pen tool. So if I go to the plus button and the pen, now I've got, I can use magic ink, of course, is what I would like to do. And you can have students practice writing. Now writing with a pen tool is not ideal. So what I like to do, that's my line, but it didn't work out well. But you'll notice you can move it, you can be here. So what I like to do is I normally would have my students use the text box, break it apart, sofa, change so that it's big enough. And then what I then would have them do is take their magic pen tool, go back to the pen, and then they can slice it after they type it. So that's just one way to have them use both tools, but still being able to read it, because writing with a pen tool is not great for anybody. Book Creator is currently available via Clever for single sign-on. All right, so this is another way think of that same worksheet I just showed you, but now you can recreate it in Book Creator and make it that much more exciting. So again, just as a reminder, this was just your PDF that was embedded. Now we've got the ability to add your voice, color, and practice. And so again, just thinking about different ways to make it more engaging and more available and accessible for students. This is another example of students, this was the PDF in the margin you'll see here. This was just a screenshot of the PDF. By using text boxes and adding in different elements, now you have not only the ability to type, use voice, but we also have this read to me up in the right-hand corner. And so anything that is obviously not in a PDF, but if you have any text on screen, it will read it aloud to you. So you don't have students raising their hand every 3 minutes saying, what does this say? What is this? It's all right there built in for you. So I just wanted to share that as well. And then another example, this is your word sort. So we're focusing on the long A, spelled A-I or A-Y. Really, at the end of the day, the goal is that students realize that patterns in words for sounds make sense, so that when they hear the long A, in the middle of a word that they could understand that that's normally going to be spelled AI. Whereas if they hear the A at the end of a word, it's normally going to be spelled AY. Like that's the goal of the lesson, is for them to start realizing and hearing the individual sounds and know the spellings. So taking that practice, which was cut and paste, and if any of you have ever taught elementary, you know, and it probably is all the way through high school, but really you could cut and paste, and there's your whole lesson for 30 minutes, because that's how long it's going to take them to cut something apart. And then the glue is going to end up all over the place everywhere, and they're still going to be missing the pieces, because there's always those kids that will miss the pieces and now they can't find them, so they have to write them in. Use it in a different way. So this is, again, taking that same word sort. Now we have the ability to add in some of these features or take them away. So as I mentioned, you can easily assign books to students in Book Creator. You can assign groups of students, and so that way you can differentiate. So in this example, this is like, okay, I'm giving you the word, I'm giving you the recorded myself reading the word, and then all you need to do is drag the word where you belong. That's a pretty easy task for students because they have all of these kind of scaffolds built in. What you can do as well then is you can take this away and you can delete that. You could also encourage students to record the word themselves and then move the word. And so again, making it a little bit more complex and a little bit more difficult for various students based on their needs. And so this, again, allows you to use all of the features built into Book Creator to make something a little bit more exciting. And then last but not least, there's a lot of these kind of like graphic organizer note catchers built into EL Education. This is one example, like problem solution. Again, easily being able to type right into the box, add your voice, add your translations, etc. This book will be shared out with you with the recording, but I put this in here because this is just one example of how it walks you through a daily lesson for EL Education, and you'll see all these yellow boxes are all these tips on how to take what you're already doing and make it just a little bit better and a little bit easier in Book Creator. And so just know that this resource is here to kind of walk you through that. So another thing that's really important for EL Education is vocabulary, and really focusing on that tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary. So those academic words, the low frequency words that are really only happening in context. And unfortunately, those are the words that are always found in your Smarter Balanced assessments. Thinking about this is kind of your academic and domain specific vocabulary form that you get. So students can either do this in a notebook. I know my boys had done it in just a spiral bound notebook, but there's a lot of better ways, I think, to keep track of these things, and using Book Creator is one of those ways. So for example, you could create a digital vocabulary notebook that then the student has throughout the entire year. You just keep having them add pages. This is aligned to the EL Education. So just some fun things like use stickies if you want to kind of add extra notes. This is that same form, but now they can type or record the word. They can add the definition. We also have some pre-made vocabulary graphic organizers. So maybe you want them to do a couple different things as they're working through their vocabulary. And so just kind of having a fun digital way to show the learning of the words that they have to learn anyway, but in a place that they're not going to A, lose, B, get wet, C, their dog eats, right? So this is, again, a nice, easy way, and that example is there for you. I promised you that I would show you some of the graphic organizers. So if you go to the plus button and you go to your more section, you will notice all of these are kind of apps. So you'll notice here on the bottom, it says add apps. If you click on that, these are all of the apps, if you will, that Book Creator has available to them. So Giphy, Bitmoji, Canva, Google, feedback stickers, animated emojis, graphic organizers, and 3D models. You'll notice if it says premium, you have to have a premium license in order to access those. Sounds like some of your schools do. You can always sign up for a free account at any time. So like all of these things that I'm showing you, most of them you still have some availability to use, even in our free version, where you get one library and up to 40 books, and that's for anybody at any time. So as I mentioned, you have to add the app. So if you go to the graphic organizers, you've added it in, you'll notice it's in the more. And what you'll see here are 282 current templates. in these categories, we just added portfolios last month, and you can simply find one that you want to use, or let's say you're looking for one. Now we do currently have a vocabulary. So if we were on vocabulary, so I guess I'll stay there. So if you find one that you really like, oh, I really love this vocabulary word comic one. I think that this is really fun for my students. You just simply add it to your book, and then it just adds it to the next page that you were on. And so this is all completely editable. You'll notice that it shows it's locked currently. That's for students, to not have them change everything, but you can simply just unlock. And now if you don't want them to add an image and maybe you wanted them to add a drawing, you just simply change it. Now it's there and the students will have it there for them. So again, these are just graphic organizers, pre-built, pre-designed, ready to go. Another thing that I wanted to share with you that's really important in EL education is their independent reading journals. And so being able to answer questions and do some thinking around the reading that they are doing in class or the reading that they're doing on their own. And so these are your kind of sentence starters. So the students had to choose one of these things to write about after they did the reading. It's like their reading prompt bookmarks, I believe is what they call them. So this is just a different way to do that. So maybe having them practice, again, hearing them read a passage from those 10 minutes that you read last night. Record yourself, because as a teacher, I want to be able to hear them and hear the fluency. How are they doing? Other things that we need to think about. I want to know their thoughts about what they read. Any new vocabulary terms that came up? Is there a summary image or a summary of the page, the title and the number of pages? So again, this is just taking something that they're already doing, making it a little bit more engaging, complex, and having that ability to, again, translate and speak and be able to hear it. And so this is just another example of reading reflections. Knowing time, I'm going to kind of skip over that now so we can get into some of the last two parts. So the next part of our curriculum is material. So what are the tools used for your methods? How are you reflecting student interest? How are you being culturally diverse? And how are you addressing all types of learners in your classroom? So one of the things that we hear a lot about from our users is, all of the fun features we have at Book Creator that are fun yet can be used for a lot of educational reasons. And so for a bell ringer, for example, adding an emoji. As I mentioned in the pen tool, we do here have a ton of emojis that you can choose from. So how did you feel about yesterday's lesson? Well, I felt pretty excited about it. You can add that here. We also have in the premium version, in the apps, we also have animated emojis. So we have a set, and it's not super extensive, of animated emojis that you can turn on or off for students that will then give you a little bit more pizzazz, if you will, that students could also choose from. So again, having some fun way for them to show feelings. So talking about the SEL focus, I know that EL education has a lot of that. Just, what is our main focus? Is it empathy? Is it bravery? Is it, perseverance? And then how well did you understand it? Again, having students be able to type it, write it, add a voice, add a movie, whatever it is that they need to do that. In Book Creator, we have real-time collaboration, meaning that you can have students working in a book together at the same exact time. So if you're used to Google Docs where you can have multiple people in there, the same thing holds true for books. And so this is for teachers and for students. And so you could be working together, creating something as teachers, a teacher group, grade levels, etc. And then you can share that out with all of your students, but you could also share it with students to work together in small groups as well. The graphic organizers I just shared with you, but again, we just launched over 100. By back to school, we will have probably close to 800 additional page templates. So I would definitely look forward to those. Many of them are free to all users. We do offer some of them premium as well, but that is something that I'm currently working on, and I'm really excited to get a lot more in there. Right now, we have a lot that are more for your ELA, but I know just from teaching, we need a lot more for history, social studies, math, a lot more for math. And so a lot of those are coming soon, so stay tuned for that. In addition to that, as I mentioned, collaboration, but you can also add co-teachers to your libraries. And so what that means is If I am a second grade classroom teacher, but I know that I have my reading interventionist, my Title I teacher, she comes in, and my teacher librarian, they help with my students. And maybe, you've got your ELL teacher coming in and helping with your students, and your special education teacher. I mean, that's 6 of you right there. If you're working on a project or even working on your EL education block, you want to make sure that these teachers have access to that student work. And the easiest thing you can do is just have them come into the library. So whatever library it is that you're focused on, and I'm going to show you that quickly, just because for those of you unfamiliar with Book Creator, this is my teacher dashboard. So every single one of these is an individual library where I could have specific students working in. So if I just had an EL library for my project or whatever it is that I'm doing, I can invite them in. So right now we're in this library. Here's your invite code. So you would just share it with your teachers, the invite link and the code. And then as others join, you'll notice here I'm the library owner. I've given these 2 teachers co-teacher. But anyway, so that's how you would do it. You would just promote them. And then you can see here, in the actions, remove as co-teacher, promote or remove as user. And then it shows you all the books that they've created in their library. And then last but not least, being able to share with the world. So in Book Creator, you have the ability, and we highly recommend that you publish your books when you're done. So when you publish them, they become either a private published link or a public published link or QR code. And then that way you can share that link out with families in a very safe way. So my son's 3rd grade teacher, just this past year, they use Bookworms, so not EL education, but same open source. And they were doing a unit on biographies. And so they had to read about various biographies, and then they had to write a biography about one of the people. And when they were finished, they shared it out to all the parents saying, please check out your child's work and then share it with anybody around the world. We're trying to track where our books have been read. And so I work for Book Creator. Most of my colleagues are in the UK. So I was like, please read my son's book. It's so exciting. And my sister out in Los Angeles. And so then they were getting all these pings. Well, in 3rd grade, part of the curriculum is also to learn about the continents, the oceans, and the world. And so then they were tracking which continents that they landed on and how many countries read their biographies. And they were very excited about that. And so being able to, again, share those links and have the students realize that their books can be read by more than just their teacher or more than just their classmate and more than just even the state that they're in is really, really exciting and powerful for them. So many of the students would re-record themselves because they typed it and then they had to read it aloud on the page. And so many of them were like, I need to redo it. Oh, I don't like how my voice sounds. And it's just so funny because I'm like, that is amazing fluency practice. Please keep trying. As I mentioned, we do a lot of app smashing. So Book Creator is not like a one and done its own thing. We highly encourage, there's so many amazing tools digitally. And so we want to make sure that those tools can be used in Book Creator books. And so this is the ultimate guide to embedding content in Book Creator, but you'll notice you really can embed almost anything with a link that lives on the internet into a book in a really nice readable format. And so I just put that resource there for you to check out. And last but not least, the assessment piece. So this is probably one of the most important pieces of EL education. It all comes together to that culminating performance task at the end of every module. When we talk about assessment, this is really talking about what we can do. And so at Book Creator, one of the tasks that I've done is create performance tasks, K5, currently making 6th, 7th, and 8th grade all performance tasks. So these currently live in our library, and I will show you in a second because I have it linked a little bit later on. But we have the performance task books for your students. So already pre-made templates that you can just assign to your students for their performance task in each grade. And one of the other things that we have when we talk about assessment is the commenting and feedback feature. So you'll notice on the bottom of every page, the bottom, there's a little plus button, and that is your commenting feature. So you can turn this on or off for students, and basically you can leave comments for the page. Students can leave comments for each other if you want that peer feedback. The comments can be, again, video, audio. You could leave them in emoji. We also have these really fun feedback stickers. So maybe you want to say like, oh, you're right on, you're right on the right track. Great job. You can leave that comment there. And then the student can comment back and forth. So it's a nice way for you to be able to leave that feedback. I also have a lot of teachers that you leave feedback either like right on the page or in the margin by adding a shape. So if you just add a shape and then they just leave it there kind of like a digital sticky note. Another thing that we're seeing a lot of schools and school districts using is really being able to kind of talk about their learning or their work and then being able to kind of have that artifact. So when we talk about like portfolios, but even if you don't want a set portfolio, thinking about, okay, usually for your performance test or your assessment, it's like based on whatever you created during the, unit 3 in this module, now you're going to do this. And so this would be a way for them to upload their assignment or upload a book or whatever it is that they did, and then being able to kind of talk about it. Why are they proud about this? What did they notice about it? What could have been improved? So again, having them think about their learning is a really, really impactful intrinsic way to have students continue that learning journey, because it is a journey. It's not just what you can create at the end. It's what have you learned along the way. And then the ability to upload and use rubrics. I know EL Education is very heavy on the rubrics and what they can do. And so just giving you one example, you can easily just do that. You can use the pen tool as the teacher. You can give them their grade right in it. And then we have some other teachers that are also using Book Creator to monitor fluency progress. So I kind of mentioned it a little bit early on, and I know this isn't directly related to what you're doing in EL Education, but kind of being able to have students record it, you listen to it, you can do the highlighting like you would normally do, and now parents, student study, special education, you name it, can see it. There's a ton of examples books in here. This is the library that I mentioned to you, but I will link you to, and if you can't find it, in the Discover section of Book Creator in ELA curriculum, here's all of the performance tasks. So again, in the Discover section, ELA curriculum, all of the performance tasks, K-5, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, all modules will be released in August. There's also some teacher resources in this book that I shared. I hope you got something out of today's session about using Book Creator to amplify EL education. I know that your district is really partnering a lot with EL education. I'd love to see that, and anything that I can do from my end to support any of you in any of the creation of any of these things to support your students, please, please, please reach out at any time.